So this morning we have a dual session. So this is how it's going to work. I'm going to give the stage over to Eric, and he is going to give a presentation on 2 case studies on pricing. And then Kadra from Zillow is going to join us on stage. We're going to do a fireside chat. And then at the end, we'll do a Q&A with both of them. So hold your questions until the end, unless they're just burning desires, and then we'll get your questions answered if you have to have it answered immediately. So I'm going to welcome to the stage Eric Delancey. If you were in the executive forum, you heard his overview of pricing theory, and those types of things. So what I asked him to do is I said, can you give me 2 case studies so we can take this information and understand the logic for these 2 different case studies, and then maybe we can use that and apply it to different things as we're making pricing decisions in our homes and model homes. So without further ado, I'm going to get out of your way and hand the stage over.
Thank you. Thanks. So my name's Eric Delancey. I'm a marketing professor at Brock University. I teach courses in marketing, general marketing, like intro to marketing. I also teach courses in pricing. One of the courses I teach, actually, when Deanna asked me to offer case studies, I teach a whole course in case studies. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give you something to read and then come up with a recommendation for a company. I'm going to take you through 2 pricing cases, examples, whatever you want to call them. To begin with, in case you haven't seen me speak at this conference yet, I just want to give you a quick overview of where I'm coming from with regard to price, because it might be different from the way you're looking at price. So I teach value-based pricing. This is different from cost-based pricing, which everyone pretty much is familiar with. You take what it costs you to acquire a product, you add a margin, and you set a price accordingly. Value-based pricing looks at what the customer values the product at, and pricing according to that. This is proven to be more profitable because you are getting more money from the customer because they are paying what they're willing to pay, as opposed to a price that's based only on your costs. You can harvest more of the value you've created. So in improving your product and improving your company, you have made your products more valuable. You can acquire more of the money for that. But it is a more involved process. There's a lot more to do to understand how customers value the product that you're selling, and as a result, the more effort you're willing to put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. The 2 cases I have today, one is a more involved example and one is a less involved example. Case A, we're talking about built-in speakers in the home. Okay, so I use this as an example. You have to determine what are you going to charge as a builder for built-in speakers. Well, you understand what it costs you to acquire this speaker system. You understand what it costs you to install this speaker system. But you may not understand how much it's worth to the customer to have a built-in speaker system, an indoor-outdoor single control. You can work it from an app speaker system. They probably never thought of this. So the problem is you can't go to a customer and say, hey, how much would you be willing to pay for this? Because the customer doesn't know either. They probably never thought of this, and they have a very poor conception. We as consumers, all of us, are not great at creating products, creating prices. If you were to say, how much should I charge for this, that's a difficult question to answer. If you said, hey, I could charge $300 for this, or I could charge $400 for this, which is more appropriate, that's an easier question to answer, and we're going to come back to that idea in a few minutes. And there are 4 steps which you can see on the slide. The manner in which you devise the value for a product is called VTC, value to the customer, and there are 4 steps which you can see on the slide. First, you have to determine a comparison product. You have to say they could get a bunch of Google Homes, they could get the built-in speakers in the home, or they could do X. They could not get them. They could go aftermarket. They could get a bunch of Google Homes. Whatever it is, there's some sort of comparison point. What you want that comparison point to be is to be what the customer would do if they didn't buy the product. You know what 6 Google Homes, not what you would recommend them to do necessarily. Not whatever else is on the market, but what would they do? And you know what that costs. You know what 6 Google Homes cost. And these differences can be positive and negative. So then you identify all of the differences between your built-in speaker system and this other solution. The Google Homes can do more than play music. And these differences can be positive and negative. Some are very rational. Built-in is more aesthetically pleasing. I don't have to worry about getting it installed if it's built into the home. The Google Homes can do more than play music. Well, this is all these different things. Some are very rational. I don't have to worry about getting it installed if it's built into the home. Okay. Some of them are very emotional. This is more compatible with my because what you have to do is value those differences for my various devices. Again, some will be objective. I know it will cost me X amount of dollars. This is important for the next step because what you have to do is value those. Others are more subjective. Again, some will be objective. I really like how it looks. I know it will cost me X amount of dollars to install this in my home after I take possession. And that's where the more subjective is. How do you value I really like how it looks built into the wall elements versus experiences? And that's where the tricky part is. Aesthetics. Is how do you value these subjective elements? And that's what I'm going to dive into in the next couple slides. Experiences. Once you've got those differences, you sum it all up. And you get a number. Product features, aesthetics. So let's say you get a number of $700. And that's what I'm going to dive into in the next couple slides. What that means is, once you've got those differences, comparison point is the price that it is. Number. Your product is worth $700. So let's say you get a number of $700 or less. What that means is the comparison point. Let's say our comparison point for built-in speakers is aftermarket speakers. You're going to buy them. You're going to mount them on the wall yourself, or you're going to hire an electrician to come in and do it. So let's say our comparison points are the fact that you have to get it installed after the fact. You're going to buy them, you're going to mount them on the wall. Whether it's in or on the wall, does the wiring show? What brand is it? All of these things can be points of difference. Some of them are going to be advantages for built-in. Some of them are going to be advantages for aftermarket. All of these things can be as I said, some of these differences are objective, some are subjective. Advantages for built-in. So how do you measure it? Well, there's a research tool called conjoint analysis. And I'm not going to get too technical here because I know that's not what you're interested in. But so what it does is it asks people to compare products. So what you would be saying is, which do you prefer? An HTD brand built-in speaker in 4 rooms for $700 or a Bose system with tabletop speakers in 3 rooms for $1,200? Which do you prefer? And you ask customers to make these comparisons over and over again, depending on how deep you want to go, 20 or 30 comparisons. And from there you can tease out what it is, what elements, how many rooms, whether it's on the table or built-in, whatever else, what each of those are worth in terms of price. From there you can tease so this is a way you can actually measure some of these subjective whether it's on the table or built-in, whatever else, what each of those. So as I said, you get this end result. Your product is $700. The comparison product is what it is, and your unit cost is, let's say, $200. You can price anywhere between $200 and $700. End result. Your product you can't price lower than $200, that's your cost. You can't price higher than the value to the customer because you have determined this is what they're willing to pay. If you price more than that, they're exchanging more money than the value they're getting back. Okay, so you get this VTC number, this value to the customer number, and this provides you a range. Where you should price within this range, that's where things like competition comes in. That's where things like your other goals. Are you trying to move units? Have you bought a whole bunch of these speaker systems and you're just trying to get them out of your warehouse? Okay, are you trying to differentiate different models because this comes with it and that doesn't come with it? There's all these other strategic, competitive, qualitative factors that will determine where in that range you're going to price, but this has now provided you information about where you can price. What you don't want to do is offer equivalent value for money. So here is a built-in system I found online. It costs $700, or you can buy 6, home assistants for $360. And let's say these are equal. You've done your analysis. You started with the home assistants, and you determined you're better in these ways, and that brings your value up to $700. So I'd say you could buy the option on the left or the option on the right. And if they're equivalent value for money, that's a hard choice to make. You don't want to give customers a hard choice to make. You want to give them an easy choice to make. So if they're equivalent, now they're like, I don't know which one I should buy. Maybe I won't go for the built-in because it's just as good if I get this other thing. And so that's why you don't want to price at or above the VTC itself. That's the first example. I've numbed you all with different types of analyses and different ways of looking at this. Case B is a lot simpler. That's why I put it second. Okay, so case B, let's say it's a whole home security. How do you know the value for this product? Well, you could do what we just did with the speakers. We could find a comparison product. We could go through all of these steps. But there's a simpler way to do it. Like anything else that's simpler, you may not get as much value for yourself out of it at the end. But all this takes is 2 questions. You ask customers, is this price too high? You give them a price. You say, is this price too high for what you're getting for whole home security? And you give them that price and say, is this price so low as to raise questions about the quality of this product? So now what you're doing is you're trying to find out the most customers are willing to pay, the highest price you can charge, and the lowest price you can charge before they start to question whether this is worth getting. And you use these numbers to build a matrix. Now, the next slide I'm going to show you is going to look very technical. It's not. I'm going to walk you through it in about 2 minutes. Okay? The math is addition, subtraction, maybe a bit of multiplication. But basically, all this matrix I'm going to show you says is how many buyers you would have at each price that you've asked based on these 2 questions. From there, you can determine which of these prices is most profitable. So here's this. Oh, sorry. I got to go back. Here's this slide I was talking about. So let's say you asked about the prices. That's the column on the left. Okay, so these are the prices, $35 through $65, and you have your data. You've polled 200 people. You know, no one said $35 was too expensive. 1 person said $38 was too expensive. 7 people said $41 was too expensive. The next column over does this say the quality is too low? Okay, 5 people said if it was $35, they'd have questions about whether this was worth buying. 14 people said if it was $38. So you get these numbers. You can convert them to percentages, which are the next 2 columns, and then you get a cumulative number. So if you look at the column I've marked A, all that is saying is by $44, 17% of people have said this is too expensive. It's cumulative. Okay? By $56, 78% of people, 78.5% of people said this is too expensive. Column B is the same thing, but from the bottom up, because it's the opposite. It's saying the price is too low. If you take column A and column B and add them together, you get how many people are saying they won't buy it, either because the price is too high or because the price is too low. If you know how many people won't buy it, then you know how many people might be willing to buy it, which is the column of interest. That's your column D. Column D is saying, based on these questions, at $44, 8% of the people I polled might buy this product. Okay? And from there, if you multiply it by the price you're charging, you can get how much money you're going to make, which shows in this example, $50 is the sweet spot. Combination of the price you're charging at $50 and the number of people who are willing to buy at that price, that's where you can make the most money. Very simple. 2 questions, you build this matrix, which, you know, math-wise, my 12-year-old daughter could build this if I walked her through how to do it, because it's just addition, subtraction, and multiplication. And you can figure out where is that sweet spot to charge. Now, what doesn't this tell you that the first example does? You haven't done any digging into why people value it at that price. You haven't done any digging into why people might have questions about quality based around what you might be charging. And so you don't have all this other information you can use in your marketing materials, you can use in your sales process, you can use in terms of communicating with the customer and understanding the customer. But what you do have is a simple way to determine what might be the optimal price. So it's a shortcut to determining value. Okay? Like any shortcut, there are pluses and minuses. A lot less involved, a lot less research you got to do, but also a lot less value you're getting out of this process. You don't get that depth of having done the value to customer analysis, because you're not going to understand from this what are the drivers of value. So the key takeaways here, if you listen to nothing else I say, price based according to value, or at least consider incorporating value into your price and not just based on cost. Value is knowable. You can do research, complex research, simple research to determine value. Okay? And using different processes will yield different outcomes and you have to decide which process is the best for you. I'm happy to discuss this further with you offline. My contact information is on the slide, but I do want to keep this session going and allow Deanna to bring up the next participant as well. So thank you for your attention. I'll be available for questions at the end.
You want to do questions now so you can the report?
Oh, if you prefer.
Yeah, I think it'll make it easier.
Oh, sure.
On you.
Yeah, I'll take questions now, and then I'll leave because I have a flight.
I changed the game plan on everybody because I know he has to catch a flight. So if you have questions, raise your hand so that we can get the microphone to you. In the meantime, here's what I took away, because this is what I do for a living, is I do qualitative and quantitative research for consumers. So here's what I learned, is that ask about the numbers, but don't forget to have conversations with them about why it matters.
Yes.
And this is a lot of the conversations we've had with different builders and different people around throughout the sessions that we've had, is that talking to the consumer, your sales team and whoever is talking to your consumer on a day-to-day basis, if you don't have a feedback loop in place with your sales team to say, this is what I'm hearing from the consumer, you're missing your own qualitative feedback cycle where you can say, you know, we keep trying to sell this speaker system and nobody's buying it. Right? Well, why not? Have we asked them why? And so if you keep hearing that information and your sales team keeps telling you this, maybe you're getting the feedback from your realtors that, like, nobody wants the shag carpet. I keep making fun of shag carpet. I'm sorry, I'll stop doing it. But if you can call me and I'll do the numbers for you, I'll do surveys for you all day long. But what I found is that asking the consumer why, what do you need? Why don't you want this? Why do you want this? And then having all that information being funneled back to you really helps your decision making.
I would go one step further. I don't know if this is done in the housing industry, but at the end saying, by the way, go to our website and fill out this survey, please, does not work. Okay? If I go somewhere and I have the whole conversation, I buy something, and then they say, by the way, please go to our website and fill out this survey, or here's a QR code, please fill out our survey. I'm never doing that. But if they say, what brought you in here today? Or what about this product is appealing to you or something? I'll have that conversation in person. Again, more effortful, takes more time, but you're going to get a lot more value out of it.
Yeah. And then looking at this chart.
Yes.
Another thing that I took away from this was you're not going to get 100% of people on the same page.
Oh, never.
But you can find the optimal range, or you can be okay. I've actually had conversations with people. They're like, I don't need 100%. I need 15%. 15% is what I'm aiming for. I don't need 100% of my market. I need 15% of my market, because that's how many homes I have to sell, right? Or that's how many speaker systems I have to install, or whatever it might be.
Well, the other thing that this shows is, yes, the percent of people is important, but that's multiplied by what you're charging for it, by the price. So you may actually be more profitable selling fewer units if you can sell them at a higher price. And I have lots of data that we can talk about again offline, and examples and such where you make more money by lowering the price. And that's counterintuitive for a lot of people, because this idea of market share is ingrained in us. As I tell my students, you're not in the business of selling units, you're in the business of making money. And if you can make more money selling fewer units of different finishes or whatever, then do that, as opposed to lowering the price just so you can move more units through and make less money.
So there's margin and there's market share. And they do this, right?
Yep.
And they might get you the same dollar, and they might get you more dollars or less dollars, right?
Yep.
Fantastic. Any questions from the audience before we let